Grab your yarn, grab your hook. Meet me right back here. I'll see you in a minute.
Show me love, show me love. This is all we got.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel. My name's Robin Chichula, and I will be your crochet instructor for today. We are working on this adorable crochet block. We call it the Larkwood Crochet Block. It is a free pattern on our website, marleybird.com. The link will be below in the description box. What you need to make this adorable block is 3 different colors of your favorite yarn that you like to make for blankets and Afghans. We use Caron 1 Pound. We used it in dark pink, gray mix, and hollyhock. So pink, gray, and purple is what we used. You can grab any 3 colors that you like. You don't use that much of it, so you definitely can make quite a few blocks from those big balls of yarn. We used a J crochet hook or a 6mm hook. You're definitely going to want a great bent nose tapestry. There's lots of ends to weave in. And you're going to want a couple stitch markers along the way. They definitely come in handy. And of course, some scissors. So besides that, all you need is a little bit of fun. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about color. The color placement on here, you can play with quite a bit. The way that we did it is we put the brightest color for the main color, and that's kind of what makes the T or the X if you look at it in your block. But you could always flip the script on this and make your brightest color that you put in the corners, and then this part kind of recedes in the background. You'll see they look very different from each other. You can also play with what is the background color of all of these too. So what I'm saying here is you can kind of go sky's the limit when it gets to the colors here. There's lots of play that you have going on. But enough about that. Let's jump into here. The very first thing we're going to do is talk about what each one of these are. They're tiny little blocks that are 9 that are put together to make our big block. So grab your yarn, grab your hook. Meet me right back here. I'll see you in a minute.
Show me love, show me love.
Hello again. All right, our first stop on making the Larkwood block is making this adorable little motif. You need to make 5 in one color and 4 in another color. And honestly, or any combinations. The way that the Larkwood is set up is that we have it as a little cross in the center with the 5 and then the 4 on the outside. But you could, if you wanted to, you could have them to be more like an X and arrange that way, and it's still 5 of one color and 4 of another. Anyway, what you're going to need to do is get started somehow, and we got to make one of these cute little guys. Let's bring in our stitch diagram because, of course, we love stitch diagrams here at marleybird.com. And with our stitch diagram, it really tells us everything that we need to know to complete the small portion of the block. It tells us that we're using chains. Great, easy, we got that. Half double crochets, perfect. Now this is double crochet. It doesn't say any specific kind of double crochet, but it's curved, so it kind of gives you a little clue of, in the stitch diagram, something's going on here. So either I gotta read the directions and make sure I know what's going on, or pay attention to when I get there. We have this little fun character called the third loop. You can see them under some of our half doubles. So again, it gives you a little clue. Okay, I got to pay attention to what's going on here. And it's calling out a join. That also is something questionable because usually when you're making motifs, when you're joining, you're just doing a slip stitch. So it's kind of one of those little clues of why are they calling out each one of these joins? What's special about them? So those three things. Something's happening in our last round with our double crochet. I got to pay attention to that. 2, okay, I got these third loops. I'm not sure what those are going on. I need to pay attention to those. And 3, let's check the notes for what's going on with the join because that's called out here, which means there's something else going on. Perfect. Last thing is you'll notice there's a color key. If you looked closely, round 1 and round 2 are actually different. So meaning that normally this would be like one color, this would be a different color, this would be a different color, like they would change colors. But here, the color of the stitch is going with the color of the yarn. So round 1 and round 2 are using the same color yarn. Round 3 is using a different color. So that's like the last little bit that's going on in this diagram. But with all that to say, let's go ahead and jump right in. You're going to go grab whatever color you would like your center. So whatever color you want your center, that's the color you're going to grab. I'm going to grab our pink for the center. And it starts with an adjustable loop. You can make yours any way you like. Magic ring, adjustable loop. This is how I make mine. I wrap my yarn around my finger so that the working yarn is on top of the ends. So on top of the tail. I insert my hook into the loop, then pull up the working yarn from below, and then I'm basically going to chain 1 to lock it into place. And so then this loop becomes my ring. And if I pull on my tail, it will easily pull together. If you have a different way you like to start a motif, please feel free to use it. Anything, as you can tell, that you can make it real tight in the center so you don't have a hole. Any of those are okay. All right, to get started, we're going to chain 2. This does not count as a stitch on us. We're not including this as a stitch. And we're just going to put 12 double crochets in our ring. A double crochet is you yarn over, insert your hook into the loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's a lot of the same words. So let's use some different words this time. Yarn over, insert your hook into the ring, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's the funny thing in crochet. There is so many things are called loops and hooks, and they all end up using the same terminology all the time. So sometimes it's easier to see what is happening here. All right. Once again, a double crochet if you're not familiar, yarn over. Insert your hook into the ring. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. You're going to do that 12 times. So we put 12 double crochets in our ring, in our adjustable loop, or whatever else you want to start with. They all will work for this one. There's nothing magical about how I started it. You can start it however you would like. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I want 1, 2 more. Now, I should have mentioned this when I start. Sometimes I go so fast, I don't do this. But if you have a hard time figuring out what is your first stitch, feel free to use a stitch marker all throughout. I don't always mark my first stitch because I end up going so fast. But if you have a hard time seeing where your first stitch is, please mark it right after you make it. Because obviously we're going to be joining these nonstop. Now what I'm going to do first is before I join it, I just want to get them a little bit closer together. So what I do is I put my thumb on top of the center. And with my fingers down below, I'm going to use this set and I'm going to pull it closed. So now it's a little bit tighter together. I can move my hands out of the way a bit, and you can see you just pull it nice and tight and closed, and it pulls everything together. So you have no more center, no more big hole in the middle. Now it's time to join. And as I said when we were looking at the stitch diagram, there is something special about this. The way that we're joining is we are removing our hook, inserting it from the back to the front of your very first stitch. Remember, these turning chains, we're ignoring them. I'm going to pop on my free loop, the working loop, the loop that we just finished working on, and I'm just pulling it through that first stitch. So what happens is when I do that, I can have my top two loops of both stitches are visible, and it's just another way of joining. And for this motif, this is my favorite way of joining for this motif, more than doing a slip stitch. But again, this is yours. If you like the slip stitches, go ahead. That's how I like joining this one. So once again, because we'll be doing this quite a lot, let me show you one more time. When they're separated, insert your hook from the back to the front under the top two loops. Pop on that free loop and then just pull it through. So now that loop is ready to do work for the next round. Okay, come back into our stitch diagram here. What I really like these stitch diagrams for is it tells me what I'm doing for every round. So for round 2, I see I have a chain 1 to get tall. And then if I look on the sides, it always has these 4 half doubles separated by chain 3s. So if I dive a little closer, I see that I have, let's say on my sides, 2 double crochets, half double crochets on the sides. And then in the corners, I always have this half double, chain 3, half double, all going into one stitch. So I have all of this happening in one stitch. That is going to be repeated throughout everything that we do on this little motif. All right. So knowing that is that, okay, I'm starting halfway around. That's why we're going to start this off halfway around. And then I'm going to repeat. I have 2 half doubles, a corner, 2 half doubles, a corner. It kind of gives me a nice little marking of where I'm going and what I'm doing. So we come back to our actual work and we go, all right, chain 1. Then I'm going to put a half double in the first double crochet. And now I'm going to remember for all of you, please take time to mark it. If it's hard for you to see your work, it will come in handy when you do those joins, without a doubt. That was my first one. Now I'm going to do my corner, which all it is a half double. And a half double is where you yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, pull up a loop. You got 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Now we're going to do a chain 1, 2, 3, and put another half double in the very same stitch. And that made our corner. You can see it even turned us. So now we have a half double in the next 2 stitches. So insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3, half double. Then we'll do a half double in the next one. So we have our 2 half doubles and a corner. And we just repeat that. So we'll have our corner, which all that it is a half double, chain 3, 2, 3, and then a half double in the same stitch. 2 half doubles, 1, 2, then a half double in the next stitch, chain 1, 2, 3, half double in the same stitch. Our third corner made, you can see it transforming from a circle into a square. We have half double, in the next two. It's really easy once you start, getting that little rhythm. Think of it as your side and then your corner. So your side and then your corner. That's how I like to kind of break it down in my brain. We have our last corner to make, half double, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, half double. And now we're all the way back to the beginning. I have one stitch left. Put a half double in the last stitch. So now all that's left is to join them. We have it handy dandy marked off for, so I'm going to insert my hook right where the stitch marker was. Again, from the back to the front, and see under the top 2 loops. I'm placing my free loop on my hook, and I'm just pulling through. So now round 2 is all done, and we've transformed from a circle into a square. All right, let's head back to our stitch diagram. Take a look at the next row, and this is where we have our next little, what is that? Where we have our third loop that we have going on. So we have all these little V's on the 4 half doubles that we made from before. So when it comes to this row, you're going to be doing a half double in the third loop, which we'll look at, on all of your half doubles. And then in the corner, like we said, the corner is still going to be the same. It's going to be half double, chain 3, half double into this chain 3 space. So not too bad, just one new little thing. And the last thing to note is that we're changing colors because it is a different color on our color key. Only for these kind of color work patterns will you see a color key. Otherwise, when you're looking at other stitch diagrams of ours, if it's every other row is a different color, it's just to help distinguish the 2 different rounds. But in this one, it's actually telling us, okay, time to change color. No problem. So we'll go ahead and we'll get ready to hop into the gray for us. So as you know, I have that working yarn all ready to go. I have joined it together. All you need to do is to change color is you're just going to fold it over. So you're just going to fold it over. I leave a long tail for weaving in later, and you're just going to fold it over and through that working yarn. So again, fold in your new color and then just pull it through the working loop. You can cinch up this working loop by pulling on your working strand, and now your color, your gray, is ready to go. So following the pattern, it is a chain 1 to get started. It also does not count as a stitch. It's just to get us a little taller. Then whenever we go around round 2, it's going to be half double in the third loop on all of these half doubles, and then our corner working in the corner. Okay, third loop. The third loop is a strand that's sitting on the back of your work. So we all know, let's look at it on the side. We all know that these are our top 2 loops, right? We all know that those are our top 2 loops where you normally would go through. But hiding on the back is this other strand. Do you guys see that? So these are our top 2 loops. But if I rotate it even further, it looks like it's just another top 2 loops, but it's not. This is our back loop, and that other strand is our third loop. That's where you're inserting your hook. So you're going to yarn over, and you kind of pull it towards you. So you can kind of see the back. This was the top of your work. Rotate it over, and you're going to insert your hook into the third loop and do a half double. So you know you've done it right if your top 2 loops are not being used. So again, to do the third loop, twist it this way, and you'll see under, these were our top 2 loops over here, there's another strand hanging out. That's where you want to insert your hook to put your half double. In the corner, we're going to do half double, chain 3, half double. You did that on the last round for your corner. It's the same here. You're just doing it into that third loop. You're just doing it into the chain 3 space. Okay, back to these third loops. So we're going to put a half double in each one of these half doubles going across, but in the third loop. So again, what I like to do is I like to rotate it down, and there's a strand that's hanging out on the back side of the work, and that's where I'm going to insert my hook. So it's this strand on each one, and it's just one strand that you're going to insert your hook into. That strand that we're actually talking about is made when you do the yarn over for your half double. That's what's kind of nice about these half doubles. It's nice and pronounced. So watch. We yarn over. So keep an eye on this strand right here. We're going to do in our chain 3 space, we're doing our corner. But let's just watch this yarn over. Insert your hook, pull up a loop. Again, watch that yarn over. I'm going to yarn over, pull through everything. This strand, which will become our third loop, that was just your yarn over to begin with. So that is where you're inserting your hook on all of these. It's just what is happening in the back. So this strand right here becomes your third loop that we're inserting into, which is kind of cool. So when you have it all done, what happens is you know you got it right. When you look and you can see that your top 2 loops, nothing's gone into them. It's almost like they're sitting up and away apart from the rest of the work, and you've gotten your third loop correct. Okay, let's repeat these directions. We have 4 half doubles going across, all in the third loop. Then we have what's happening in our corners. Half double, chain 3, half double. Perfect. Again, we repeat that. We're going to put 4 half doubles here, all in our third loop. Again, all I'm doing is rotating down so I can see where I'm inserting. And as long as you are not grabbing your top 2 loops, as long as those are going fine and you're going through one strand, you're good. You got a third loop. Don't stress yourself out about, if I've perfectly found that space. You're fine. In this case, if it is easy to put your hook into, you got the third loop. The third loop for half doubles sit out really boldly, so you'll know if you've gotten right or not. We're nearly done. Back at the beginning, we only have 2 half doubles left. So my third loop is here. And once again, I did not mark off my first stitch like I should have. I told you, sometimes I always forget. I like to go too fast. But if you marked off your first stitch, that's where you're joining. My first stitch is right here. I'm popping on my free loop, pulling through to finish my join. Now, I will say I know that we're going to change back to the next color. So I'm just going to go ahead and change it right now. You'll see I didn't fasten off. It's just sitting down here from below. So just fold over your color and pull through. And then you can pull on your working yarn to tighten that up. So now you have this color ready to go for the next round. You can see on the back, I pulled this up from behind so that that's that string. We can fasten this off now because we don't need it. So in the back, you're going to have these ends to weave in, but you're ready to go for the last round. All right, let's head to that last round. Look at our stitch diagram real quick. And we are back to the very last question mark of what is going on with this half double. Why is he curved? Because we've answered all the other questions. We know about the joins. We know about those little V's, meaning our third loop. What we don't know is what is happening here. So what is happening here is we are doing a half double that's going to jump down in our work. Let's take a look at the finished project. As we know, we have all of these top 2 loops just hanging out. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a mosaic technique and put a double crochet into them. So our double crochets that we're putting are right here. They are not joined to our round 3. They just hop down into round 2 all on their own. And that is like the mosaic technique where you hop down into a row and put stitches in it. And you know, it's not a spike. You're not going around it. You don't see it on the back. But we're hopping down and using those top 2 loops that we did not use in round 3. All right, let's take a look. This still has the same repeating pattern. You know, you're going to do the same in the corners, but let's take a look all together and how this goes together. Once again, we chain 1. Chain 1 to get tall. The next thing that we do is we are going to do a double crochet into the very first stitch. We'll do this a bunch, so again, our double crochet is where we yarn over. What I like to do when I'm doing this mosaic technique and going down into the stitch is I kind of fold away the gray. I fold away the round 3, and I'm going to insert my hook into the top 2 loops of the very first stitch on round 2, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's my half double. Don't worry, we're going to do it a bunch more. Okay, with the remaining 2 half doubles, we're going to put half doubles in their third loop. So again, I got to rotate down so I can see that third loop and put a half double in that one and put a half double in this one. You got it right because we can see those top 2 loops hanging out looking pretty. In our corner, we're going to do our corner again. Half double, chain 3, half double. What gets repeated across is 2 half doubles in the third loop, then 2 double crochets, kind of mosaic wise, 2 half doubles in the third loop, and then of course your corner. All right, third loop, rotate down, insert my hook into the third loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert into the third loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through. Now, so like I was rotating down looking like this, now I'm going to turn my work back this way and kind of fold it down away so that it's not in my way. So I'm kind of holding it down there. That way I can yarn over, skip the first half double, and insert my hook into the next one to do a double crochet. Then do a double crochet in the next one. By folding this away, my working yarn doesn't have any way of getting tangled up in my work like that. That's why I like to kind of use that method to fold it away. It's like it wasn't ever there, and all I'm doing is some half doubles. I'm doing some double crochets into the stitches down below. But now it's time to bring it on back and do a half double in the third loop on the last 2 half doubles. So I'm rotating down. You'll notice I skip these 2 back here and put a half double and another half double. So if you're looking at it, it's 2 half doubles in the first one, essentially skipping those half doubles on the third row behind it and putting it down here into them from the second row, and then half doubles in the last two. Is how you want to look at it. So from behind, you were working in the third loop here. We skipped these two third loops are still there, and then we put it into the last ones. All right, corner, as we know, chain 3, corner. So the same directions. Rotate it down, half double in the third loop, half double in the third loop. Now, rotate it up. I like to fold this away, skip the first half double on round 2, and do a double crochet in the next one, and a double crochet in the next half double. Fold this back up. In these last 2 half doubles here, we're going to put a half double in the third loop. So I'm rotating it forward so I can see where to put my stitches. And then, of course, do my corner, half double, chain 3, half double. Once again, rotate it down and put a half double into the third loop, then another half double in the third loop, rotate it up, fold that round 3 down so I can only work in my round 2, double crochet, fold back up my round 3 so I can see it again, rotate it towards me so I'm working in the back, in the third loop, put my corner in, my very last corner, and then we're back to the last 3 stitches. So I'm going to rotate down, put half double in the third loop, half double in the third loop. In the very last stitch, I'm going to put a double crochet. Of course, join to begin with. We're all done. All that we need to do is cut a nice long tail, pull my tail through my working loop, make it nice and tight, and we have our small motif. Packs a lot of punch. There's a lot of fun things going on here, without a doubt. I will say one thing, I do weave in all these ends right away. You'll notice everything is all woven in right away. It's a lot of tails, so I like to do it right away, just so I don't, forget at some point. But go ahead. We need 9 of these, so go ahead, make all 9, and then join me back, and we'll talk about how we join these together. See you soon.
Show me love. Show me love. This is all we
Welcome back. Okay, time to join these all together. Have it laid out however you want it to be. As you know, this is the layout that we have for Larkwood, and you can play and play and play. For instance, we talked about the X, we talked about what we have is the cross, but if you look at this way, you could have these also be purple, and then you kind of have like this pattern growing out too. Lots of fun things. Lots of different things you can play with. These are very fun. The tiny little motifs are very fun. Let me show you how I join them together. Again, You can join them however you want. If you don't like this, it is a little bit more finicky way of joining. You could whip stitch them together. I just really like the way that this looks when it's all done, as you can see in the picture in the pattern. But if you have another way, go ahead. This is just the fun way I like to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to be like a little sewing machine, and we're going to seam this whole line up together. You repeat it on here on the next line by seaming all those up together. Then we'll go back through like our little sewing machine and finish this line and finish this line. We're going to be doing it by slip stitching these two together. And it is fun because, one, you get to slip stitch, which I really like doing, and I do feel like I'm a little sewing machine. But it also will leave a nice look at the end. Not everybody likes what I call like the candy cane when you whip stitch it together. This gives a very nice seam going all the way up. So let's take a look at how to do this. I'm just going to move these three off to the side. We don't need them. I'm going to kind of move these up a bit because we're going to do two at a time. You're going to grab, I like to grab the same yarn that I made the cross in to do this. You can do it in a different color if you wish. For sake of what we're doing, when you do it to complete it, I want you to do it in this color. But for video, it's not going to be the greatest for you to see. I'm going to use the gray just so you can see it. But do it in this color. I think it looks nicer in that color. Okay, how you're going to do it. Start by putting your slip knot on your hook. What we're going to be doing is slip stitching through both of these at the same time. And the way I like to look at it is we have a back loop of every single stitch across. All of the stitches, even the chains, they have a back loop. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be slip stitching through the back loop all the way across. The easiest way to look at it is this is your back loop, this is your back loop, and this is your back loop. We are joining these two together. But the way we're going to do it is kind of like this one is going to be on top of this one. Instead of joining it like this, where the seam would kind of end up on this side, we're going to seam it like this, where the seam will be up top and our working yarn will be down here. It'll all become clear. So the first thing you want to do is you want to join it. Remember, these were chain 3 in our corners. So I'm joining it to the middle chain in just one strand in the back loop. The back loop is the one furthest away from like the center. So you have your chain 3, join it to the back loop, and I'm just going to slip stitch. This kind of joins your yarn to your work. So if I move my hook out, you can see I've just joined these two together just by going through one strand. Think of it that way. Okay, so all the way across, we're going to put a slip stitch in each one of these going all the way across. And how I'm going to do it is I'm going to insert my hook into the very next stitch, whether it's a chain, half double, or double crochet. Go through one strand. So I'm going through one strand of the purple, and then I'm going to go through one strand of the pink. So you look, the very next stitch is this one. Go through one strand of the pink, having my working yarn in the back, yarn over, pull through those strands, and the loop on my hook. And then again, I'm going to insert from the top to the bottom through the back loop, the one that's furthest from the center of the next stitch. I'm going to insert my hook from the top to the bottom into the next stitch. With my working yarn behind, I'm going to pull through all of that, like a little sandwich that I'm making. So the reason I'm doing the back loop is it kind of sits in a divot almost. So it gives this somewhere to go. And so I just keep doing it. And you can see that this is flat as I join these together. All of the bumps that happen when you do your slip stitches are happening on the back. Because again, my working yarn is in the back. Yes, this is next level. It is definitely more fiddly than some other seams. But around here, we love unique different ways of seaming, and this is definitely one of them. So in the back loop of the purple one, in the back loop of the next stitch on the pink, and pull through. So back. So if you keep doing it in the same rhythm, you go through the same motif each time. It really doesn't matter which one's on top and which one's on the bottom. It doesn't matter if you started with your pink on the top and the purple on the bottom, but if you keep doing one at a time, and remember I'm pulling up from the back, those are the magic keys to this. So one strand of the purple one strand of the pink one. I'm yarning over from behind, pulling up a loop, and pulling through, and I'm going to do that corner to corner. So right in the middle of each one, corner to corner. And that seamed these two together. It's a very flat seam going through the back loop. What happens is your front loop becomes kind of like a nice little border stitch on each side. It makes it look incredibly even. Then you come to the next ones, and it's a little harder when they are the same color, but kind of be like, okay, this one over here and then this one over here. You're going to do it the same way. You're going to go through your middle chain of each of them. I don't fasten off. I'm just continuing on by going through both of them. And then, your back loops as you go up. I'm still going to do the back loop of this one, then the back loop of this one, yarn over from behind, and keep working. So this is why I really like to consider myself like a sewing machine, that I am just working one strand at a time of each of these to create this really flat seam. And you're just going to continue that all the way up, or what other seam you like to do. But we're going to seam all the way up, and when you get to the end, fasten off. Okay. We are going to zoom ahead now. I'm going to do this, have this seam done and this seam done, and then we're going to come back and look how you do it when you go across like this. All right. I'll see you shortly. All right. So I should have it like this. You seamed up the two long edges. And just like I said, I used gray just so we can see what we're doing. But on the motif, I use the same color as the center here. One, just so it wasn't another standout. If you liked it like that, go ahead. I find that if it's the same color as the crossing motifs, then the contrasting color kind of pops more. It gives a different visual field, but that's up to you. And then we're going to go ahead and do the perpendicular seams. It's the same way. The only difference is, if you think about it, when we were doing these seams, we made sure we were in the center chain, right? We were in the center chain and we went up, which means that when you're doing it here, you start in the corner, sure, the center chain isn't gone into, but when you get to here, right in this here, the center chain has already been connected with these two. So there's you don't have to go into them. So the only difference is when we get to the seam, we're just going to slip stitch over it and then keep going. So let me just show you what that looks like real quick. I do have one other tip for you as we go too. What I find is when I do these, I really like to make sure that these double crochets are all lined up. And they should be, right? They're in the same spot with everybody. But I find that, like, sometimes when I'm counting, I will be off one like this, and it will drive me crazy. And I'm like, why does that keep happening to me? So I will say this is what I like to do when I'm doing it. You don't have to do this, but if you found that all of yours are off just by a little bit, pull out that seam and let me show you my little trick. I find it easy for me essentially to count these stitches as I go, not because it matters. It doesn't really matter if you missed a stitch. It's just that I like these double crochets to line up, which is just a little fiddly thing of mine. You can do this also when you're whip stitching too. It doesn't matter what seam you're doing. What I'll do is, because I'm really concerned about these double crochets, is I'm going to insert my stitch marker into the first double crochet, like coming down here. I'm going to also insert it into this first double crochet here. These are the two that I want to make sure that are lined up, right? When I want to make sure that those two are lined up so I don't mess up. Then when I'm joining down here in the chain, I know I am 5 stitches away when I join. So that's the one I'm going to go into. Just by chance I like choose 6 down here or 4, I know, no, it's 5 away from the center. They're always 5 away to get into the center of this chain space. So again, I'm just going to use a different color here so we can see, which one's the seam, which one's the stitch. So I'm going to count down. This one is the one that the stitch marker's in. That's my double crochet. I need to be 5 stitches away from that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. I inserted my hook into the 5th stitch down. I'm going to do the same thing on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that I know when I go up that these loops are going to line up and be the same so that double crochet can be together. So I'm going to join my yarn. Again, all of the yarn is being worked from behind. I'm going in the back loop only. All that is the same. Then as I go up, so I go into the next one. Again, I'm always working one motif at a time. So I'm always doing the same thing. So in this case, it'll be pink first, then purple. And I'm going in the back loop of each stitch. I don't care what kind of stitches they are. I'm just going into the next one and the next one. You can almost think of it kind of like a zipper. You go into the back loop of the next stitch, the back loop of the same stitch over here, so that they all line up. I'm, pulling my yarn. The working yarn is behind. It's underneath. It's in my hand under here. So one, pulling up a loop. And then when I get here, you're like, perfect. These are ready to kiss. So these are perfectly ready to go. And then I just keep going. And then I know that no matter what, my double crochets are lined up right where I want them to be. If it doesn't, it's not like one of those, oh, Robin said it, I have to do it. No, I'm just, if it's something that annoys you, pay attention to it. Again, you don't have to do this seam. I want to be very clear. You can do any seam you want. I just find it fun to do a different seam sometimes. Okay, I am now at that point where if I go into my next one, look, if I go into my next one, I already have a seam there. That's already seamed together. I don't have to dig into that. So what I would do instead when I get here is I'm just going to work over the whole seam. I'm going to go over the whole seam and just do a slip stitch, or think of it as a chain, however you want to do it, is I just went over the whole thing. So if I go back, I'm going to go over the whole thing and then just continue on my way, joining these all together from behind. You need to be a little bit extra gentle on yourself because you're working from behind and you cannot see your yarn from behind, but you're just going to continue up that line. So that's the only thing different about this perpendicular. It's just, I'm just hopping over. Okay, one last little tidbit I want to talk about, and that will be the edging. So go ahead, finish this up, and then we're going to work on our edging, and that's it. All right, I'll see you in a minute.
Show me love. Show me love.
All right, one more little thing before I send you on your way is the edging. We need to do the edging of this block. We have them all joined together. And the way that we do the edging is very similar to the rounds that we have here. So the first thing we're going to do, and it's really the one thing I want to show you, is how to do like your, what I call like, it's round one, but it's really your setup. Basically, you're going to be putting a whole bunch of half doubles all the way along your edge. Your corners are still going to be the same corners you have been doing. And the way that I set them up, because it was a little bit particular, and so I just want to walk you through it. Now, round 2, you'll have no problems. And round 3, you'll have no problems because it's basically just like doing rounds 3 and 4 of what we have going on here. So those I know you guys got, but let me show you why I'm being a little particular of what I'm doing here. I'm going to be honest with you. If you just wanted to go ahead and do a half double all the way across evenly, that works too. You don't have to be as particular as I was. It's just what I'm doing here is I wanted to make all of these top loops stand out so that it didn't look like these were kind of hiding in the back. I wanted them to be popped out a little bit. So we're going to be working in the third loop again, but we're also working in the third loop of our double crochets, and we haven't done that yet. But there are third loops to double crochets as well. So what it tells you is to join your yarn. In this case, I'm using the same color as the purple to kind of tie that part together, to any half double in the center motif. So these are the center motifs. You can choose any one you want to join to begin with. And it's telling you to join it in one of the half doubles. Well, if you look at it, it basically means don't try to double join it to your double crochets, but you got 3 half doubles over here and 3 half doubles over here. Join it to any one of those. It does not matter which one you choose. So, and you want to join it to the third loop. So again, I'm going to choose this one at random. Did not matter which one I chose. And I'm going to join my yarn with a slip stitch just to join it. And I'm going to chain 1. Now basically what's going to happen is I'm going to put a half double in the third loop across all the way across until I get to this chain space. So working in my third loop, I'm going to put a half double in the same space that I joined to, half double in the next one. Now I'm to my 2 double crochet. So I want to show you again where the half double is on them. Again, keep in mind, you have your top 2 loops here. You go over, here is your third loop on your double crochets. You can insert them into those. Think of them as kind of like the back bump of a chain. And honestly, wherever strand you grabbed is good as long as you have your top 2 loops here and you didn't grab like too far down the post. You'll be good to go. So I'm going to keep working across the stitches until I get to the chain space. So you'll know one of the chains was in the seam. We seamed to that. So you have one chain hanging out there. And I want to keep these top 2 loops seen. So I'm going to work in the back bump of the chain. Keep in mind, we have, with a chain, you have 2 loops here and you have a back bump. I'm going to put my hook into this back bump. Do you have to do that? No. I just like this whole uninterrupted seam. I really like the way that that looks. So that's why I worked in the back bump. But if you want, you can just put it in the chain 3 space. You can do it like that. No one's gonna care or notice. I just like to put it in the back bump. Again, it's just like the seaming. There's options here. Do it the way that works for you. Then I'm going to put my next one into this seam. I'm just going to put it in the seam. And then I'm going to continue. So I'm going to work in the back bump of the next chain. Again, you could put it into the space if you don't like working the back bump. Nobody likes working in the back bump. You're not alone. And then I'm going to work into my third loop of each of these half doubles. So there's 3 half doubles. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to work into the third loop of these double crochets. 1, 2. I'm going to work in the third loop of the 1, 2, 3, 2, 3 half doubles. And now I'm at the corner and I'm going to do half double, chain 3, half double. And you basically just repeat that all the way around. So you work in the half doubles, you work in the third loop of the half doubles, the third loop of the double crochets, third loop of the half doubles, into the back bump of the next chain, or in the chain space. Work 1 into the seam, and then you just continue that. Back bump, across all of the third loops, back bump, into the seam, all the way across. That's the way that I evenly made sure that I was doing it nice and evenly. And again, the reason that I was going into this third loop is just for this line right here, so that this stands out the way that these stand out. It just elevates the piece just a tiny little bit. All right, I'm not going to show you the last 2 rounds, but I know you can do it. It's just changing your yarn and doing the third loop all the way around. You did that here, so you can do that here. And then the last round is just going and doing some more double crochets right in the corners like you did here. So you can do it there. There's a lot of tricks in this block, but it's the fun part about it. And again, make this your own. Change up the layout, change the way it seamed. You can do it whatever you want, but there's lots of little tricks in here that I hope you may use on another project, because that's kind of the fun part of that, doing all these little blocks, is you learn a little bit and you kind of expand on it. Anyway, enjoy, have fun crocheting, and we will see you again here at marleybird.com. Bye, everybody.
Show me love.